Hey again. It's your favorite writer. JK, anyway, I'm going to only post this book's chapters a bit at a time since I am still writing it. This book has multiple point of views, aka PO versus. Anyway, on to the actually story.
Harry Potter? No, it's Harry Strife. By Shinada 141, aka me. Cover made by Himiofshinus. Chapter 1. It had been almost 11 years since Petunia Dursley had given up her nephew for adoption. Back then she was left with so much terrible amounts of guilt. She had gone back a few months later afterwards trying to get Vernon to agree to get her nephew back after leaving him at the orphanage, only to find out the boy had been adopted a month after they had left him there. Harry was the only thing she had left of her sister, even though she had been bitterly jealous of her sister because of something she couldn't have, but that didn't change the fact she had lost her beloved sister Lily. Vernon, on the other hand, didn't take part in her grief, nor did he care about his only nephew, and Petunia noticed as of late, Vernon has been barely coming home as of recently, and the fact he'd always leave for many months at a time. Petunia had suspected that he was cheating on her, because he would not only leave for long periods of time, but he would always mock her looks, saying cruel things about how thin she was and how sickly looking she was, though he would never say anything or even do anything in front of their only son or the neighbors. She was very glad that Vernon treated their son, Dudley, much better and spoiled him rotten, and his 11th birthday was that day, and he had 36 presents downstairs, mostly from Vernon, since Petunia never had enough money of her own besides her inheritance from her parents that she refused to share with Vernon. Today, though, was going to be a good day for Petunia because Vernon was taking her and Dudley to the zoo for Dudley's birthday like they'd planned, and she and her husband had to pretend to be happily in love in public and in front of Dudley. Of course, he was their only child. After Petunia got ready for the day and went downstairs to cook breakfast before Dudley woke up, Vernon would be getting home soon, just as she finished making breakfast and made Vernon a cup of coffee. As Petunia finished making breakfast for her and her family, then she went upstairs to get Dudley up, knowing Vernon would be getting there soon from an overnight with the other woman he had been most likely cheating on her with. As soon as she left the kitchen, she stopped in her tracks as she spotted an envelope on the floor. Her heart leaped in her chest with joy, hoping that this was her chance to be even with Lily for once, even though it's through her son. But as soon as she picked it up and read it, her heart dropped. The letter was for her and not her son. It was for her and only her. She opened it up and read the letter of what was inside. Dear Aunt Petunia, it's me, Harry, Harry James Potter, or should I say formerly Potter, since my dad's allowing me to change my last name to his on my 11th birthday because I want to take his last name officially. By the way, Uncle Zach is helping me write this to you, since my spelling isn't that great yet. I love my current family, but I still want to get to know you and my cousin. I would love to visit you when I'm older. Auntie Aerith says it's a bad idea since your jealousy will get in the way because my mother was a witch and you weren't. Anyway, gotta go. Dad and Mr. Snape want to talk to me about a place called Hogwarts. I don't know why though. I don't want to go, to be honestly. Harry. Note from Zach Fair. Don't worry about Harry, he's well taken care of. And he knows everything from who his real parents are and how they died. By the way, this is delivered by me, laughing face. She let out a huff and went back into the kitchen, tossing the letter into the can she had hidden on top of the refrigerator that had other letters inside from Lily. She didn't want Dudley seeing them until she was ready to tell him the truth before she went back to do what she was originally going to do. Wake up her son. As the day went on, Vernon would give her nasty comments every now and then when Dudley was out of earshot and it was less crowded. After the zoo trip, Dudley went upstairs to play with his new birthday gifts while Vernon and Petunia went to the kitchen. They talked for a while before Vernon left. He forced Petunia to sign divorce papers, telling her that she'll keep everything including their son. He told her he would still pay the bills and child support. He had admitted to having slept with another woman many times, and she was pregnant with his twins, and how much more beautiful she was than Petunia was, and he wanted nothing to do with their son after today. After he left with the papers, she cried for the first time in such a long time as grief finally hit her, as well as her husband leaving her for another woman. Mom! Mom! She quickly wiped away her tears and put on a fake happy face as she heard Dudley coming down the stairs happily. He came into the kitchen with a letter in his hands. Before she could question where he got that letter from, he started shouting excitedly. Mom! This letter says I'm a wizard and I've been accepted to a school called Hogwarts. Petunia was no longer faking her happiness as her heart soared with pure joy and happiness. That's great, Dudleykins. We can get your stuff next weekend. okay? So go pack for our trip to London, she told him, giving him a hug and a kiss on the forehead. Is Daddy coming with us? He looked up at her with so much hope it made her heart break. She truly didn't want to tell him about his father's departure from their lives to be with a more beautiful woman yet, but it looked like she was going to have two. I'm sorry, but Daddy won't be coming around anymore. She was trying so hard to not cry in front of her son. He still loves you, but he wanted something more, so he left. But he'll always love you no matter what. Dudley pulled away and glared at her angrily. If that was true, he wouldn't have hurt you so much, he shouted at the top of his lungs. He doesn't love you or me. I hear you cry every night after he leaves, calling you bad names. Dudley was shacking so much his eyes filling up with tears, but he refused to shed a tear for his own father. Petunia was absolutely speechless. She hadn't realized Dudley would have noticed how Vernon treated her, nor did she think he could hear her crying her heart out every night. His no father, oh of mine. I hate him. And with that outburst he ran right past her into their backyard to let his anger out. Petunia couldn't bring herself to go after him. She knew he needed time alone to cool down, but she was also sad for him. Vernon had left without saying goodbye to their only son, and it must have affected him. Once they went to London, she was going to look for a job after getting supplies for Dudley and spending the rest of the summer having fun with him. She meant as well sell the house and most of their belongings, because she didn't want to stay here even though it was a gift from her parents as a wedding gift. But now it just felt very wrong having it. Petunia wasn't going to allow Vernon to ruin her and Dudley's happiness now that they weren't going to be a family anymore once the divorce was finalized, and she wasn't going to allow that man back into her life, even if he begged her and her son for forgiveness. Harry had listened to everything his dad and Mr. Snape explained about Hogwarts and the other schools he could have attended, but due to his true parents who died when he was still a baby couldn't refuse Hogwarts because that was the school they had gone to and kept the headmaster from going crazy if he tried going to another school like Durmstrang. He didn't even want to go to Hogwarts in the first place. He wanted to stay and be with his father more than anything, but it's the only way for him to gain friends, which is what his father wanted for him, so he was only going to make his father happy. Truly he loved his father even though he wasn't truly his biological father by blood, even though he wanted him to be so. The man had raised him like his own son, taught him important lessons of life he would need when he was older, and also taught him how to take care of the Chocobos. And they weren't going to get his school supplies yet. Not until his 11th birthday, since the old man wanted him to meet Hagrid first to try to sway Harry to his side. Mr. Snape had explained Hagrid was just an innocent, naive half-giant that followed the headmaster's orders without question. His father wanted to meet Hagrid himself, wanting to have a chat with him to see if he could break the headmaster's control over the poor half-giant. His aunt and uncle agreed it was best to get the innocent half-giant away from the old man's manipulative hands. Just a few days ago he was gifted with a Chocobo egg from his beloved father, and he was really excited to see what color it would be and the fact that he was going to raise it all by himself. Harry was going to take the egg with him when he went to Hogwarts. The unborn chick was his responsibility after all and no one else's, and he refused to allow anyone take any of his responsibility away from him. Red, on the other hand, was not his responsibility even though he was going with him to Hogwarts as his main guardian while his father messed with the headmaster while Harry was attending. But right now, he wanted to enjoy himself before the school year began, and not only that, this would be his final days as Harry James Potter. He hated being named after his father James Potter. It didn't fit him though he looked like him, but his personality compared to what Mr. Snape had told him was different, and so he didn't like the fact he was named after someone that had a completely different personality to his own. He hated his true father for what he had done to Mr. Snape during their school days at Hogwarts, but was happy about his blood father saving him, though it didn't change anything between them. Harry was currently with his Aunt Aerith, and she was teaching him the ways of the Cetra since he had somehow been able to hear the planet since he was just a tiny toddler. He wasn't a true Cetra since there wasn't any Cetras after Auntie Aerith's long ago death. No one understood how he got the abilities of a Cetra, though his aunt told him not to use his Cetra abilities in front of anyone at Hogwarts or in public, and those his father didn't trust. "Why can't I show them?" he asked after learning from Mr. Snape that wizards and witches could do Cetra-type abilities though not completely, which is why they needed wands, and he wanted an answer as to why he couldn't show his Cetra abilities to anyone. "Well, Harry, it will make them want to keep you and lock you up since Cetras are more in tune with the planet and those who have passed on. They would treat you as how they view the goblins like and how I was treated when I was alive by Shinra and Hojo." She explained to him, but he still didn't understand it or what she meant by that, but it was good enough for him. He had asked many questions even about why he couldn't hear or see his parents, and the answer Harry got from Aerith was that their souls were trapped in the wand that had killed them, which she made him promise never to use a wand for killing anyone, because he'll soon be getting 2 wands, one custom-made, the other bought when he goes to get his school supplies. He didn't mind making that promise. He'd rather not kill anyone, no matter how evil someone could be to him or his family. Speaking of his family, he noticed his father wearing a beautiful dress. His hair was also brushed and put up with a tiny black hat in his hair. His dad looked like a beautiful princess. "You look just like a princess," Harry told his father with a happy, excited grin on his face. His father gave him a strange look that he assumed was a bit of disgust and a very distressed look combined. "Thanks, don't drive your aunt and uncle crazy while I'm out with Mr. Snape. If I hear you've been naughty, you will get no candy, and you will be grounded for 2 weeks. Am I understood?" His father demanded, and Harry knew that his father was going on some type of secret mission since his father had his no-bullshit attitude in gear that very night. "I understand. I'll behave, but tomorrow can we play dress-up? I want to look like a beautiful princess too," Harry begged, giving his father his big, huge puppy dog eyes, and he could see the look in his father's eyes that he was trying to fight his adorable puppy dog eyes. "Fine, but only as long as you behave." His father gave out a sigh, giving into Harry's puppy dog eyes, and Harry did an almighty yes in his head as he watched Mr. Snape and his father vanish through the door. "Harry!" he heard his aunt calling him from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready." At the mention of food, Harry immediately ran towards the kitchen, not knowing after today his life would be changing forever. Chapter 2. Cloud wasn't at all pleased in the least, as he had to wear one of the 3 dresses he had owned because of both Aerith and Tifa kept them after the whole debacle with Don Corneo. He didn't even know about them until Severus had asked him to come to a small get-together with the other teachers as his quote-unquote date, to see who would be teaching that year and to see who could be trusted and who couldn't in Cloud's eyes. The only people who wouldn't be there was the headmaster Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, Quirinus Quirrell, and a ghost named Cuthbert Binns, which Severus gladly informed him of them, though he did admit he was very suspicious of Quirinus, and was very much willing to take Cloud into Hogwarts through the train with Harry on the first day before September 1st. Cloud was looking forward to disturbing the feast after all once the sorting was all done, just to see the look on the headmaster's face as he sits next to his son. It was planned by him and Severus for the past few months. Himself, Severus and Zack become fast friends with each other, and Aerith become the mother hen of their small friend group and Zack's long-awaited wife. Zack officially asked Aerith to be his wife after many years, and when Harry was 2 months to 5 and Cloud had helped them with it, that after literally scolding Zack for letting Aerith feel like she wasn't his true love for so long. And after becoming great friends with Severus and learning his past with Lily Evans before she became a Potter. To be completely honest, he didn't like Severus holding a long-term hatred for James Potter, but was disgusted by Lily's behavior towards a single word that was only said when emotions were running high, which ending in Severus going down the path of darkness. Cloud personally told Severus that Lily was in the wrong for holding something like that against him for a long time, when it was clear that James and Sirius caused him to be highly emotionally motivated in the first place, and she should have forgiven him just as she had with James and Sirius. He had come to enjoy his time with Severus. Also, he was now glad that he took his motion sickness pills early that day, which he had bought them last week, because being apparition inside a hallway inside of a building made him feel a bit dizzy. He didn't really care to pay attention to any of the small details of the hallway and currently wasn't looking forward to partying back home. Severus gave him a slight smirk that was only shown towards him. So Cloud sent him a glare right back at him as an elder lady with a stern face who also wore emerald green robes walked over to them. As she reached them, she gave Cloud a look of confusion, but it went away really quickly as she faced Severus. "Severus, you usually don't come to these events, and it's so good to see you out and about for a change." The elderly woman gave him a small smile, turning her gaze towards Cloud. "And who's this beautiful young lady you brought with you?" Cloud wanted so badly to huff out, but had to keep up this charade of being a woman who didn't have a voice, so he had to keep silent. Though he wanted to punch Severus for pulling him even closer by the waist, he still had to behave like a lady. "This is my friend. We've been together for a few years now, and she wanted to see what the teachers were like compared to her own magical school, and wrote to me about her desire to come with me to meet with the other Hogwarts teacher tonight." Severus was lying. Cloud knew that much because he helped Severus with that lie, even though it was most likely an obvious lie to the woman right in front of them. She gave each of them a suspicious look before accepting Severus' lie. I know what you both of you are thinking or planning, but I won't tell Albus anything. I shall lay my Gryffindor's honor on what happens tonight, and if you could give this little Harry—" She handed a box to Severus. "I took it straight from Albus's office, and it belongs rightfully to the boy, and he should have it since it was his father's. Now, I'll be seeing you when term starts, Severus. I still have a classroom to prepare for the year, and come up with better plan next time, boys." She chuckles at their shocked faces before parting away right in front of the two of them. After that incident, both of them didn't keep up the lie, and Severus just ended up casting a charm on Cloud's throat to change his voice into a more feminine-sounding one. Though Cloud was annoyed that he could have done so earlier, but Severus just wanted to see him struggle first without being able to talk. Over the night, Cloud had met every teacher and learned each of their names. He adored the half-giant the most, who was the most kind of sweetest person he's ever met that was treated horribly in his youth. He liked all the teachers so far and actually enjoyed talking to them. When it was time to leave, he along with Severus left, and now back to Cloud's second home. Severus and he said their goodbyes after Cloud's voice was back to normal before Severus parted away. He gave the box that was Harry's gift to Cloud. Cloud rolled eyes before entering his home, and was glad not to see the place in a disaster. He quickly closed the door behind, locking it tightly before he heading upstairs. Red was sitting in the hallway right in front of Harry's slightly open door. Red had grown into a full-grown lion hybrid and mostly looked like himself without the tattoo number Hojo put on him in his old life. The cub's sound asleep. Zack did try to get him to do some mischief with him, but it didn't work because he really wants to play dress up with you tomorrow, he reported to Cloud as soon as he saw him. Cloud must have had a pure look of horror on his face because Red started laughing at him. "It's your own fault for making that promise." Cloud rolled his eyes and went into his own room, getting out of that stupid dress as well as getting the stuff out of his hair before walking into his bathroom to take a quick shower. After finishing his shower, he went to his dresser, pulling out his usual outfit, putting it on. He grabbed Harry's gift, which he had placed it on his bed before taking his shower, and went to check on the little man. Red had already moved away from Harry's door and was now laying in his bed, which was next to Harry's own bed, with his eyes closed. Cloud put the gift on Harry's nightstand where he kept his glasses on. Before he left, he turned on the music box he gifted to Harry on his 3rd birthday, letting the soft lullaby music to play throughout the room. Cloud had gotten the music box because Harry had many nightmares since his parents' death, and it did help Harry get more sleep peacefully with the music box playing. After leaving the child's room, Cloud went back outside to work on making Fenrir 2.0, which didn't look anything like the original one. This one he made from scratch and looked like one of the many cars he'd seen driving in this time period. He was still trying to get it to drive on its own, so it could go back home after he and Harry got to the train station, so it wouldn't be towed away for staying too long. As he didn't need sleep as much as Harry or Red did, he'd do things like this, so he wasn't bored during the night. Every few nights he'd go back to his true home during the night to check up on the Chocobos, especially the recent hatchlings, as well taking a few nightly rides on Fenrir. As he worked, Cloud felt as if he was being watched. He made sure not to show it to whoever was watching him on his face. After a while, he started hearing the footsteps getting closer and closer towards him, and Cloud was grateful for his soldier hearing because whoever it was being really quiet walking towards him. As soon as they were behind him, he grabbed one of his many swords hidden within Fenrir 2.0, which were just copies of his fusion sword blades, and twisted it towards the person's throat, but not to the point of harming the another person. Without even looking at the person, he spoke to them with a bite to it. "State your business and purpose. If you think I wouldn't slit your throat if you don't have a valid reason to sneak up behind me, you won't be leaving without a scar or two. I didn't know you had excellent hearing as you aren't a werewolf, and I wanted to meet the person who was raising young Harry," said a male's voice he had never heard before. Cloud turned his head slightly to see who the person was. The man was very pale. His hair was a light brown color. He had a few scars on his face that looked more like wolf-like type of claw marks raked through his face than just simple scar that was made by a blade, and his eyes were an amber color. The poor man was really thin but looked like he was being fed but not enough. "And why, pray tell, did you want to know who I was? And it better not use the excuse to take my son away from me because you deem me unfit to raise a child with magical capabilities." Cloud growled lowly but knew the man heard it loud and clear. The man gulped. "Well, I have been hearing about Harry had gotten adopted by a mysterious person lately that is loved by the goblins. The only reason I heard this news recently was because I was with my parents and all I knew was Lily and James had died and their son went to live with his aunt who hated magic. I have no clue if she still does. But I had gone out to help my mother with shopping the other day, and I overheard that Harry had been adopted by someone no one but the goblins had met. So, naturally I went to the goblins and asked them about Harry and the person who was raising him. At first the goblins had refused to tell me anything until a female voice from nowhere spoke, telling them to tell me everything and to give me an inheritance test as well as to prove if I'm worthy of meeting you in person. They took me into a private office first to take an inheritance test, and I was shocked to see what I didn't know about before. I will show it to you so you can see it for yourself. He held out a scroll towards Cloud to take. Cloud lowered his blade, trusting him enough that he wouldn't attack him outright. He took the scroll in his hands and opened it to read it for himself. Name Remus Lupin. Status, half-blood. Age 31. Species, human, werewolf. Parents, Lyle Lupin, Hope Lupin née Howell. Birth, March 10, 1960. Lines, Lupin. Abilities, transforming, talented at Dada. Vaults, Lupin. Mate, Sirius Black. Properties, the Lupin estate. Other information. Turned into a werewolf by Fenrir Greyback at the age of 8. Wandless magic. Unblocked was blocked by Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore in last year at Hogwarts while unconscious after transforming. Love potion. Stopped in time, which was given a potion by Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore to force bond with Nymphadora Tonks. Lupin Vault recently refilled back up after Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore was found to have taken gallons after losing the key to the Potter's vaults after their change of ownership to the planet's champion. Connected to the planet like all other myths, but has a spiritual bond to Harry James Potter and Sirius Black. Hogwarts House. Gryffindor. Other Hogwarts House. Ravenclaw. Kindness towards Severus Snape unblocked and was blocked by Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. Blocked in first year. Disloyalty towards Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore unblocked and was blocked by Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. Blocked in second year. Hatred for Tom Riddle placed by Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, 7th year, has been removed. Unlocked ability to communicate with inner werewolf was blocked by Lyle Lupin at 8 years of age, and was locked tighter by Lyle Lupin giving Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore permission at the age of 10. Health started going down at age 10 due to the tighter bound on his inner wolf now that it's no longer bound. Health will start coming back to normal, though it may take 5 to 6 years without his mate nearby. If around, mate healing would be 10x faster and would only take a year or two. After reading everything within the scroll, Cloud was starting to dislike the Hogwarts headmaster even more than before. He wondered if Albus had done the same to Harry's parents, Sirius, and even Severus. He wouldn't put it past the old man. That old man is getting on my nerves, he huffed, handing the scroll back to Remus, which the other gladly took back. The goblins had told me to take this version of the test after the first one showed that I had blocks placed upon me and wanted to show how bad a person he actually is to help get Sirius a fair trial, which I didn't even know he never got one and was just tossed into Azkaban without one, but the only things missing is proof that Peter Pettigrew did it, that rat showed be the one in Azkaban, not my Sirius. Remus sighed sadly. Cloud could see in his eyes that this man had suffered so much in his 31 years of life, while Cloud had been through so much more pain and suffering. He knew that this guy needed to heal from everything the world had thrown at him. Cloud nodded to himself as a thought came to his head. He put the extra blade away and cleaned up his tools before looking at the other man again. You don't have to say any more, at least not now. I can trust you with looking after the house while I'm gone. All you have to do is keep it clean and you can stay however long you need. And I think Harry will love to meet you. With that, both men entered the house. Neither one of them noticed that a certain flower girl was watching them from afar with a big grin on her face. Chapter 3. A month had passed since the day Harry's father and Mr. Snape had gone to meet with other people Harry was going to be taught by, and they were going to Diagon Alley today, which was 3 days before Harry's birthday, and Harry wasn't looking forward to it. Hagrid was coming by to see him today, so it was planned for today to get Harry ready before Hagrid could arrive, which, to be honest, for Harry was upset with having to get up so early just to see someone who he has never met in his life, and the fact he wasn't going to be at the other house until the holidays. Currently he was hanging out with Red while his dad was making breakfast for him, and Red along with food to the side for Hagrid whenever he came over that morning, just in case the man was hungry. Mr. Snape also had some food put aside when he came over with Hagrid. Harry had already taken a bath and gotten dressed with the help from Uncle Zack before Uncle Zack had left with Auntie Aerith so that Hagrid wouldn't meet them yet. "Harry, come eat your breakfast, you too, Red," his father called from the kitchen. Red and Harry both got off the couch and went towards the kitchen together. Red went towards the table Harry's father made for Red only to eat at since he wasn't tall enough for the actual kitchen table. Harry also sat in his custom-made chair as his dad put his plate in front of him while also putting Red's food on Red's plate. As he ate, there was a loud knock on the door, which his father went to go get the front door. After a minute or two, there was talking coming from the way where his dad had gone, and his dad didn't sound at all happy. Harry was almost finished with his food when his dad came back leading an elderly woman. Behind her was a huge giant man. He didn't know, though he assumed could be Hagrid and Mr. Snape. When the giant man saw him, the giant man smiled at him and walked over to him. Red gave the man an up-and-down look before getting in the man's way. "Red," his father called in a warning tone as the giant stared at the red feline in surprise, probably never having seen the creature before. "It's okay for him to talk to Harry, but keep an eye on him. I'm going to have a talk with the professors in the backyard." Was all Red said, not arguing with his father as he moved aside to let the giant go through. "If you so much manhandled the child, you won't have an arm." When Red spoke, it startled both the lady and the giant as he did so before he went over to his bed in the kitchen, laying down on it while keeping an eye on the giant man. Harry's father led Mr. Snape and the lady outside to talk, most likely about the headmaster his father already disliked. "Harry, it's nice to see you again, though you were just wee little baby back then." The giant smiled brightly. "I know it's wee early, but happy birthday, Harry." He went through his black overcoat and put a white squashed box in front of the young boy. Inside was a very sticky chocolate cake with the words, "Happy Birthday, Harry," written in green icing on top. "Thank you, mister. But who are you?" Harry decided to play dumb. He knew the man was the half-giant Hagrid at this point, but it would be rude of Harry to call him by his name when he shouldn't know. "Right, of course you wouldn't know of me. Let me introduce myself." He held out his hand for Harry to take, which the young boy did, and the man's grab was very strong as they shook each other's hands. Rubeus Hagrid, Keeper of Keys and Groundskeeper at Hogwarts. Outside the house, Cloud was not too happy that Minerva had appeared on his doorstep along with Hagrid. He thanked the planet that Remus wasn't here right now, or it could have messed up his and Severus's plans to hit the headmaster with a huge curveball. Remus, along with one of the goblins, was on a mission to find all evidence that they can to prove Sirius Black's innocent and had gone to Azkaban without a trail. So far, they were 40% there, and Cloud had gone to Azkaban himself to get more of the true story from Sirius about that night Harry's biological parents died. If they could find proof that Peter Pettigrew was still alive and committed the crime Sirius was blamed for, the man would be shown how flawed the magical lawmakers were and idiotic. Though he did honestly trust Minerva, he didn't trust her enough to not straight up tell the crazy headmaster all about his plans. What a surprise it is to see that your date, Severus, was none other than Mr. Potter's adopted father. She gave both of them a knowing smile. "Neither of you have to worry about me telling Albus or the others about who you are until the feast is over." She then went into her robe and pulled out a letter that was addressed to Harry. "I'm only here to help Mr. Potter gets to Diagon Alley safely. Herod was originally chosen to be the only person to come, but due to some rules, he can't use magic. And I have to warn you ahead of time of what Albus is planning for the school year for Mr. Potter." "Go on," Cloud said as he leaned against a tree with his arms crossed. He wanted to hear what the old man was going to do, to put his son in harm's way for his so-called greater good. "He plans to test young Mr. Potter throughout the year and to get one of who's men out in the open for the young Mr. Potter to take out the person by himself," she told him honestly. "The plan is to get Herod and him to become friends so he can't keep secrets he is supposed to keep. The three-headed dog Hagrid owns is mainly the first part of the task. Then it's the Devil's Snare, which is a plant that tightens around its prey when they are in a panic. The third is chasing after the right key to unlock the door to my task, which is Wizard's Chess, which is dangerous task in itself. Finally, there would Severus' task to get past a firewall to get in the room which would hold the Mirror of Erist, which have the Sorcerer's Stone that has the ability to prologue a person's life." "How do you know all of this?" Cloud asked, becoming very suspicious of her. It could have been a trap set up by the headmaster himself. "Because I overheard him talking about it when I want to talk to him about the school year's plans," Minerva told him with a sigh. "I am against all of this. I don't want any child to get harmed in any way. I adore my students because he wants to rid of he who must not be named once and for all. And I have no doubt that you will put Albus in his place." The children we get shouldn't be put in danger over a dark disillusion. Cloud studied her face for a good few moments before nodding his head. I trust in what you speak, but if you so much as get in my way of tearing his disillusioned mind apart, don't blame me if you get hurt in the process, even if he is to blame for putting you in that position. With that being said, all three of them headed back inside, and Cloud couldn't help but laugh as Harry tried to explain to Hagrid how to play a video game called Sonic the Hedgehog, and Hagrid was not having an easy time trying to understand how the game works. When they entered, they stopped playing the game so Harry could get his suitcase Severus got him the month before for his school supplies and clothes. Cloud covers himself up with a black hoodie and cloak while Severus puts a spell on Cloud's sword to be invisible to people who didn't know about wizards and witches existing, and puts on sunglasses to hide his Mako-infused eyes. Minerva had taken his and Harry's hands before operating them in a bar-type place and soon left them be after Hagrid and Severus, along with Red, apparate next to them. Hagrid looked like he was going to lose his breakfast. After checking in with bartender whose name was Tom, and Cloud really liked Tom, he was patient and even showed them to their rooms after they paid for them, and Cloud even offered to pay for a room for the half-giant. The half-giant actually cried and told them as Hogwarts groundskeeper he couldn't stay long but was grateful for the offer even though he and Severus didn't take it. Severus stayed behind to watch Red, since he had to wait for Hagrid to leave for Hogwarts. The first place they went to was Gringotts to get the wizarding money for Harry's school supplies, and once inside Hagrid left to go do something for the headmaster while Cloud and Harry waited until he was out of sight, went towards the head goblin's office so Harry could get his last name changed and to become Cloud's full-on actual child. Come in, champion of the planet. After Cloud had knocked on the door, a voice inside immediately responded. Once they had entered, the goblin smiled at him and Harry. Does Mr. Potter wishes to become a blood-bonded child of the champion? Yes, I do, sir. Harry responded in kind and bowed towards the goblin in a sign of respect. Very well. The goblin nodded his head and got up from his sit. Follow me, champion and Mr. Potter. They were led down many twists and turns before they came to a room that was next to a beautiful white dragon, who looked happy to be there regardless of it being chained up. Griphook explained the dragon was only chained to allow wizards and witches feel safe when they came into Gringotts, and was only unchained at night to keep an eye out for any thieves who would dare try to steal from them. Once they entered the room, Griphook started up the ceremony, and after a lot of chanting and cut in his arm, there was suddenly blackness. He came a few hours later within his father's arms and was holding on to him. He blinked a few times before realizing he could see without his glasses, not really paying attention to the fact they were back in the head goblin's office. I can see. I can see. He chirped happily, and his father let out a low laugh at his happiness. Congratulations, Mr. Harry Strife, you are now officially a Strife by blood. The goblin spoke as he entered the room with 5 small bags in his hands, which he handed it all to Harry's father. Thanks, Griphook, but I think we overstayed our welcome, his father spoke with a toothy grin. But we really need to get going. Harry's got supplies for school to get, and we have someone waiting for us. Yes, it's rude to keep someone waiting. The goblin quickly agreed. See you on your next visit. With that, they left to go find Hagrid.
That's it for now. Hope you all enjoyed. See you in part 2.